False Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm your host, John Buhler, staff writer, fanside.com. I'm joined today by a man who's definitely seen School of Rock, who's definitely seen what other movie is there that he's definitely seen besides School of Rock? He's
No,
definitely
just
seen
School of Rock. Just School of Rock.
He's definitely seen School of Rock, but I don't think he's ever seen School of Fraggle Rock. Could he put the word Muppets into a movie and make it better? Cody Williams, content director, fanside.com. How the hell are you?
Big Bird Man. I'm doing good, man. Happy to be here. Have indeed seen School of Rock. I don't know if you've seen I don't know if you saw the news that two of the kids got married from School
Yeah,
of Rock. Wild stuff. Love to see it, but I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
pretty good. Yeah, it's like one of the big guy from the security and one of the skinny little blonde girls who sings the background.
Yeah,
Yes.
one of the background singers. You love to see it.
I think his name was Angelo. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about.
Dude, just love is real in School of Rock. That's all that matters. That gets me through my day.
That does too. So, the last night with the brother of the Arizona State podcast, the Naval Academy podcast, if you will. Doesn't
I
like
gotta
care.
say, I don't think the Naval Academy podcast, like an actual podcast, is really our demographic. Like, I don't think we'd be very interested in
No, it'd be
that.
about like machinery and a bunch of other ass. I'm a swear there, but yeah, just that's not my thing.
Nah.
Knots and whatnot. But we're sitting there and we go to a popular bar here, Resumes Brothers last night here, and they have it's a bar restaurant up here. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's called Dad's, where it's basically themed about it's where Diesel used to be, if you've ever heard of that.
Okay, yeah, I know Diesel. I didn't know it changed.
Yeah, so it's like a dad themed restaurant. So it's like you go into like your dad's like house and shed, and all the bathrooms have like pictures of like dads, like Al
Oh,
Bundy
that's dope.
and Carl from Family Matters and George Booth and all that other stuff. So they always put like really old movies in the back, and they had Muppets Take Manhattan, and
Banger.
I was just
Banger.
I was like, I'm like, you can make Muppets about any movie. So we made a TikTok video about this.
Love it.
Muppets in the outfield.
Muppets in the
Uh,
house.
Driving Miss Piggy. School of Fraggle Rock. Um, the Muppet Redemption.
Muppet.
My favorite one was that I did was Gonzo in 60 seconds.
I was actually just about to say Gonzo Girl.
And then oh yeah, no I started the thing with because we rotated between the three of us with like six
Yeah.
of them. I go, No Country for Old Muppets was my start.
Yeah, that's what's the most you've ever lost in a coin toss.
And then Rosemary ended it with Bert and Ernie Go to White Castle.
I mean, 10 out of 10 would watch. Oh, that's good stuff.
I was gonna like quote the movie, but like that's definitely not a kid's movie.
No, no, no,
Oh yeah,
no.
and so instead of being Kermit the Frog, we're gonna be doing some playoffs. You kidding me? Yes. We're doing this segment like pretty much every episode now.
I mean, it is the playoffs. We kind of have to do it.
It'd be like that. But yes, we're gonna predict the two national semifinals, the Orange Bowl between Notre Dame and Penn State, and then we get the Cotton Bowl between Ohio State and Texas. That's why we're recording today. The Orange Bowl tomorrow, and then we will be coming to you semi-live with 3 yards and a cloud punt after the Cotton Bowl. Weather is going to be terrorizing the Southwest and Southeast, so that's going to be a pimping good time.
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. We hope we can come to you on Friday night. Like, there's a non-zero chance that we're both without power. So if that happens and you don't see
It's,
an episode in your feed late on Friday night, that would be why.
yes, I mean they don't cross each other off. Like,
Yeah.
so if he doesn't have power in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I don't have power in Atlanta, Georgia, that doesn't mean you have power somewhere else. But we got the power here.
I got the power.
Dude, 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 dude. Instead of the mask, it's the Muppet. Oh yeah. When Bunsen met Baker, and then Silence of the Muppets and Beaker is the girl in the hole. Meep. So we know Miss Piggy's Clarice. Hannibal Lecter is the critics because it's Hannibal and Lecter.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Who's James Gum slash Buffalo Bill?
James, I mean, that's got to be Fezziwig, right?
Bussy. Waka waka waka.
Yeah.
Puts the lotion on the skin, or else he gets the hose and getting a waka
Waka
waka.
waka.
I'm not better for it, but we did do it. So,
I think we're all better for it.
but we could do about everything. Like, just take a random idea and throw it in there. People love that stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's all about with TikTok for as long as we have it, lowest common denominator.
Mm-hmm. 100%. You got to appeal to everybody.
And I don't know if the playoffs still appeal to everybody now, but we got two Midwestern teams, three Midwestern teams, and a Southwestern team. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's what we got.
the Southwestern team who was in the Southeastern Conference.
And the one of the Midwestern teams is in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
That's right. Love to see it.
All right, so we're gonna combine Antonio with these two. So the Orange Bowl, we got number 7 Notre Dame, who is laying 2, versus number 6 Penn State in Miami Gardens. The Limp Bizkit song is "Head for the Barricade," and Antonio is dressing up as a barracuda
Of course he is. What else would he dress up as?
because he can read a little bit, just like the first few letters of a word, and then he just gives up.
It's
Because
close enough. His reading comprehension skills are like the horse meme where it's like the beautifully drawn horse and you get to the really crappily drawn horse at the front. That's Antonio reading any given word.
God, that ass is fantastic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you got the head of like a third grader bringing home pictures like, "Mom, can you put this on the fridge?" I'm like, "We could put this on the fridge in the garage."
Where no one can see it.
At what point did you consider changing markers? Because this one's dying on you. I didn't. Can we have it on a
Oh my,
mug or a commemorative shirt?
can we do anything but what this is?
You like your calendar. I love your calendar. Okay, so the Orange Bowl. I'm kind of shocked to see Notre Dame laying 2.
Mhm.
I maybe Vegas knows something we don't know. I am leaning the other direction for something that we saw an article I wrote based on something Emmanuel Achu said before his life changed.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
So I just think Drew Aller is the best quarterback
Mhm.
remaining in the playoff. I think you can basically, of the 4, it's really close.
Mhm.
My argument is you can't make Aller last, you can't make Riley Leonard fourth. That's really the way that I would, or you can't make Riley Leonard first.
Yeah, I think that's
Third.
probably right. 100%. Like I would probably, as much as it pains me, I'd probably have Quinn Ewers fourth. I would probably have Aller first, and then Howard and Leonard are interchangeable to me because like yes, Leonard doesn't throw, but Leonard also doesn't have like a great wide receiver room. Like his guys aren't
No,
really separating, but that's not all on like you can still make throws if you're a high level quarterback, which I don't think Riley Leonard is as a passer. But then Will Howard is the complete antithesis of that, where I don't think he's the most talented passer in the world, but he happens to have just a bunch of Ferraris around him. So that makes him look a lot better.
he's doing great. So he's playing really well.
He really is. He's playing the best football of the season for sure right now, which is a credit to him.
Yes, I know. I feel like Notre Dame is going to be the team. Like every time they advance, I'm going to be picking against them. So
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm going to be doing that here. I'm taking Penn State pretty comfortably.
I'm doing
Something
this.
something like 29 at 23.
Okay. And I'm also taking Penn State. I agree with you. I not only am I shocked to see Notre Dame favored, like when the line opened, I'm shocked to see the line continuing to move toward Notre Dame. Like it opened at 1.5, it moved to 2.5 yesterday, now about 2. So like the fact that it moved towards Notre Dame, I just didn't see coming. I feel like one of the things you and I talked about, and I think we even still saw it in the Georgia game, this Notre Dame offense does not have a lot of juice. Like Riley Leonard had like 80 something rushing yards and under 100 passing yards against Georgia. The two big plays that Notre Dame got to really put that game in their control were the kick return touchdown to begin the second half, and right before the half when Gunnar Stockton fumbled, they got a short field and came up with like a one play drive. Like the offense wasn't exactly moving the ball up and down the field on Georgia. And they weren't exactly moving the ball up and down the field on Indiana either. You had the 98-yard Jeremiah Love touchdown, and outside of that, they had under 300 yards of total offense. So like this this isn't an offense that's really clicking on all cylinders, in my opinion. I don't think the Penn State offense is either, but I think Penn State's offense has way more ways to beat you. And I also think that Penn State's defense is frankly one of the best defenses that we've seen. And like, you go back to the Indiana game. Jeremiah Love's 98-yard touchdown really like kind of put that game in their grasp, like really set the tone to where, okay, Notre Dame's going to start to run away with this. They didn't fully run away with it to begin with. They did get a comfortable lead that they didn't have to worry about, but I wouldn't say that they just took off and couldn't be stopped. But Jeremiah Love, his injury status for this game, he's the only player that you and I have talked about that we think really has juice outside of Riley Leonard on this Notre Dame offense. If he is compromised, which I don't know if you've seen some of the practice videos going around, he's practicing in a brace. He looks uncomfortable in the brace, whether that's the brace itself or just his injury being uncomfortable. If Jeremiah Love is compromised, yes, they can go to Price, the backup, but Price is a step down from what Jeremiah Love is. And if you don't have that, I just don't see against a Penn State defense where I was talking with on Stacking the Box College Football yesterday. Josh Yorish, who is a big Penn State fan, he threw out an idea which I can absolutely see Tom Allen throwing out there. But to combat Leonard and Love, let's not forget that Abdul Carter was a linebacker last year, a stand-up linebacker, and not an edge rusher. As Abdul Carter is also dealing with what appears to be a shoulder injury, maybe you kind of deploy him as a chess piece and keep him in the middle of the field because Riley Leonard can do a lot with his legs. I can guarantee you he's not outrunning Abdul Carter to the sideline.
No, he's not running out to Abdul Carter. I don't know if he's old enough to be double fisting Long Islands with LeVar Arrington, but that's the mammal juice he runs on.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the big thing for me is I think people are putting a lot of credit in Notre Dame beating Georgia, thinking that Georgia was still the same Georgia team. I'm like, look, Georgia, I don't think we did enough. In the moment, we didn't realize that how they were down, like the receivers. Again, you mentioned missing Colby Young for the better part of the season because of off the field issues, losing Robert Thomas for off the field issues. That was a problem having Tay Ratledge out for about a third of the year. The Beck's injury, it's like that's not the same Georgia team. That's Georgia was kind of playing like undermanned with a brutal schedule the whole time. There's no excuses to
Yeah.
make up for that. You play who you play and you figure it out. That's why depth's so important and
Mhm.
whatever it is. But like I feel they're giving Notre Dame the benefit of the doubt, saying that they played the two better teams here in Indiana and Georgia, which is probably true. But I mean, I think Penn State's just look a lot better versus SMU and Boise State to the point where I'm like, I don't think that matters that Notre Dame has played slightly better competition.
No, I completely agree. And like the one thing I keep coming back to is Georgia is capable of testing Notre Dame in the trenches, but I don't think Georgia necessarily did that. And we saw that kind of from throughout the season from Georgia. Like they're both on both sides of the ball, their trench play was inconsistent. And I think Penn State is a team that can really challenge Notre Dame in the trenches, particularly with the injuries that Notre Dame has on the defensive line. Like you with Penn State's offensive line and the two-headed monster of Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, like I just have a really hard time seeing Notre Dame holding up for that. Like I like that matchup a lot more than I did for Georgia, especially with Gunnar Stockton at quarterback, because you have to respect Drew Aller throwing the ball a little bit more than you did Gunnar Stockton at that point. So like I don't see Notre Dame being able to stifle Stonewall Penn State the same way they were able to Georgia with all the shorthandedness that they had to deal with. Also, you didn't Trevor Etienne was injured most of the year
Yeah.
as well. So like, yeah, Georgia was not full strength to say the least. And that's after losing Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. So like Georgia was not, we may have been looking at the logo on the helmet a little bit more. And I think people are doing the same thing, like you said, when talking about Notre Dame's win. The other thing that I keep coming back to, I was doing some digging, looking at, how this matchup really stacks out. We talked a lot about Notre Dame after the Northern Illinois loss. Like even when everyone was down on them after that game about how their schedule kind of set up for them to get here and set up for them to get to the playoff, go 11-1. If you right the ship, you can go 11-1. And that's because that schedule was not terribly daunting. They only faced four teams with a defense that was a run defense that was graded in the top 25 at PFF. In those games, they registered a 50, I think a 54 run blocking grade. When they faced a good run defense, they couldn't run the ball. Now you're going to face a Penn State defense that fits that mold as a top 25 run defense. And now you're going to have a compromised Jeremiah Love against that. I don't see that going particularly well for them.
No, I'll finish with this before I move on to the Cotton Bowl here. Penn State, this is the year Penn State has to do it. I'm
Hmm.
kind of dubious about them doing this again next year, even with the likelihood of Drew Aller returning. I
Yeah.
think you're just losing the Abdul Carters of the world. Maybe your backfield takes a hit or two.
Tyler Warren's probably gone
Tyler
as
Tyler
well.
Warren's probably gone too. Yeah, thinking about that. I guess really the big thing is Notre Dame's favored, and we know what James Franklin does when he's favored. He has the fear P go down his leg.
Yeah,
I don't think
maybe he
I
paid
don't
off some bookmakers, man. Who knows?
we just gaslighting his team and everything like that. But they got to get it done. Like this is the
Mhm.
year to do it. They were the best program to never make the playoff up to this point. Not going to say they're going to miss out again next year because the Big Ten's bottom two-thirds is just really soft,
Yeah.
and they get beat up on them. But everything's kind of lining up for them to win a national championship this year, particularly with where they landed in the bracket, the reseeding of it all. They need to get it done. And I don't think any team that's left is like insurmountable at this point. They can beat every team left. They need to get it done. And that's why I'm picking them to do so.
Yeah. And I'm in the same way. I will say there is a world where Ohio State might be insurmountable given what we've seen from the first two games from the Buckeyes, but I still think that it's really hard to beat a team twice in the same season. It's really hard to do that. You know, credit to Georgia for doing that to Texas, frankly. But like it's really hard to beat a good team twice in the same season. And, you know, Ohio State controlled a lot of that game, but I still don't think Ohio State looked particularly good in that first Penn State matchup. So, like, if Penn State can cause them problems again, I think Penn State's a better team than they were now, even if Ohio State is as well.
Totally. So right there, we're both on Penn State beating Notre Dame. Let's move on to the Cotton Bowl. It's going to be in the Texas Longhorns' backyard. They are the number 5 seed, but Ohio State, number 8 seed, is laying 6 points. The the Limp Bizkit song is "It's Like That, Y'all."
It is like that, y'all. It'd be like that.
uh, and Antonio is dressing up as a Q-tip.
Of course, it's the Cotton Bowl, baby.
Yes, it's going to restrict his mobility, but he wants to also stay warm in case it snows because he hates snow more than me.
Yeah, you know, people are talking about, you know, it's in Texas's backyard. Well, it's in Ohio State's like climate, apparently. So, you know, I don't know if the home field advantage is going to be what we thought it might be.
I know.
I mean, it is in Jerry World. There's not actually, it's
It's,
not going to matter.
nothing's ever mattered there. I'm sorry. Also, the fact that like Jerry Jones is still alive will not let Mike McCarthy interview with the Bears.
And, we don't have enough podcast time for me to talk about that right
I mean,
now.
we've got about another hour and 15 minutes for like that can resurface at some point, but we're probably not going to do that. I like Ohio State comfortably. I feel that they have a gear that I don't think Texas can quite get to here. I know it's in their backyard. It's if Texas loses the turnover battle like Georgia did versus Notre Dame, they can keep it close, but Texas's inability to run the football consistently is an issue. And I think that when we saw Sam Levitt and Cam Scott be run over the secondary, I imagine what Jeremiah Smith and Mecca Buka and stuff's going to do. So I don't think this is going to be particularly close. I'm going to take Ohio State 38, Texas 20.
So I think it's going to be closer than you do. I think actually, I think for the first half, Texas is going to may have the lead, but is going to at least be like within striking distance after the first half. And I think that that goes back to what I've been saying about Texas all season. Like they haven't put four quarters together, but they tend to play the first half pretty damn well. There's only one first half which they've trailed at halftime. They've only trailed at halftime once this entire season, and that was the first Georgia game, the regular season meeting between the two. Every other halftime they've had a lead, and most of the time it's a comfortable lead, and then they
Yeah.
just play with their food and let teams back into games. That's kind of been their MO. That doesn't really bode well for a matchup with Ohio State, who's been the best second half team in the country this season. So, not exactly thrilled about that. But I think that there's two things that stand out to me. One, I think this Texas secondary might be a little bit overinflated based on the competition and the passing attacks that they face. But at the same time, I still think it might be one of the best secondaries that Ohio State has faced to this point. The other thing that I'm really looking at is I'm really curious to see Well, if Cameron Williams, Texas star right tackle, we know about Kelvin Banks Jr. on the left side. Cameron Williams is also an NFL prospect on the right side. He missed the Arizona State game, and that's one of the reasons they were not able to run the ball is because they like to run outside zone to that right side. Cameron Williams missing that game really put them in a bad spot there. And I think it's one of the reasons why, we talk about Texas run game and how inconsistent it has been. And I think a big reason that's been a big reason why they've been unable to salt away games to really get past things. If Banks and Williams are able to mitigate Sawyer and JTT on the Ohio State defensive line, I do think if Texas is able to run the ball at least mildly effectively. I'm not asking them to average, 8 yards a carry or anything, and just like make Ohio State respect the run. I trust Sarkisian enough as a schematic mind to be able to find holes in Jim Knowles' defense because I don't think this Ohio State secondary outside of Caleb Downs, particularly at cornerback, is that special. Like Denzel Burke's going to be drafted high, and I think it's a mistake. I don't think he's a top 50 player in my opinion. So like I think that when you look at this matchup, there is a world where Texas is able to keep up. It's just health of Cameron Williams and B, like if they can live up to their potential. I'm still going to go with Ohio State. I still think Ohio State gets it done, but I'm going to go with a game that ends up about 31-24 is kind of where I'm.
I feel that. So, two things. I guess that's why Denzel Burks can play for the Falcons. He feels like a very Terry Fonda second round pick.
Oh
Just
yeah, 100%.
nobody. It's just first round picks he nails, second round picks he does not.
Hey, it happens. It'd be like that.
And then with cousin Cam, you're like over there. It's like, look, man, we're blood, but I love this guy over here with a mullet. He used to have a mullet, so be better because I want to see him keep playing as opposed to go play for like the Raiders.
Cousin Cam, yeah, I think he got all of the size genes because that is a large human being, and I am certainly not. So,
It's all the steroids and the hot dogs when he was little.
hey man, I'll take some of my diet any day of the week.
I know. I just live at Quick Trip. They call me. They call me. It's not the scissor. It's not the sizzler. It's the glizzy.
The Glizzler.
Oh man, but I guess like my big thing is there is a chance that Ohio State like plays this. I know we've been using that phrase a lot, but I feel that like for whatever reason, I still think Texas is a little bit steadier than them.
Mhm.
I feel that like they kind of cause the people that they're playing against to mess up. I think they get in their head. They did it to Georgia twice. They did it to Arizona State. They've done this to other teams as well, A&M particularly for them to get to Atlanta the first time. So you could see some sort of variation with that with Ohio State, a team that we know is immensely talented. We question how well they're coached. So that's a way that you could basically cut into the deficit. We know that Ewers will throw the ball deep, and we know Caleb Downs is licking his chops like a guy who's run out of chapstick.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's like, I like that is definitely part of what I'm like putting into this game when I think about it is we've seen Ohio State finally play to their ceiling these past two games. Like they absolutely boat raced Oregon after boat racing Tennessee, who were two teams that we thought highly of going into this playoff that we thought could potentially make some noise. We both picked Tennessee to beat Ohio State because of what Ohio State has looked like for much of the regular season. They have not played to the ceiling. And I cannot escape the thought of are they going to be able to do that for two more games, or are we going to see a letdown? If we see one of those letdowns in this spot, Texas is a talented enough team to beat Ohio State. Make no mistake about that.
Yeah, I'm right. I'm right there with you. So yeah, we're both on the Big Ten teams advancing, and Joe Klatt's doing cartwheels in the streets over this, and Kirk Herbstreit's actually doing cartwheels in his house because he's a big Ohio State homer, not an ESPN SEC homer. He's an ESPN homer, not an SEC homer, right there. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, he's he definitely didn't want Alabama in there, and don't let him tell you anything different.
Man, everybody wins here except for Emmanuel Lacho. And we're going to move on to the team that Emmanuel Lacho's team beat. We're going to move on to some Du Hast or Du Hast here with our second topic. This is all about the Arizona State Sun Devils here. So, uh, reports are pretty much everybody of note who can come back will come back, kind of like the 2021 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They made the playoffs in the NFL, didn't repeat as Super Bowl champions. Won the division, though, which they didn't do the Super Bowl year, which is kind of interesting with their dynastic run to the NFC South.
Yeah.
Um, So Duhas, Cody. Does Arizona State running it back indicate that the Sun Devils will be back in the playoff next year?
I'm gonna go do Haas 1S. And just because when I look at the Big 12, we've talked at how impressive we think the top of the Big 12 could be next year. But the one thing it's really lacking is a team that's been there and done it before. And I think like Arizona State having done what they did this season really is a feather in their cap. I'm a big fan of Sam Levitt. Like I think Sam Levitt probably had some big offers on the table from some big programs to go elsewhere. Staying at Arizona State, Jordan Tyson coming back is big. I mean, the defense is getting a lot of players back. So like you look at this and it is, and also the other thing that really stands out to me, Arizona State's had their fingers in like a lot of the transfer portal and like big names. Like they got Kanye Udo from Army to transfer in, which again, as we talked about, what a lifestyle change that he's about to go through for the better, in my opinion. But I
Yeah.
like they've been in the mix for a lot of big names in the transfer portal. Like I think this is becoming a really attractive place to go. I think this roster is only going to get better with the players that Kenny D is going to add. So like when you look at all of this coming together, you look at the Big 12, which even if there are impressive teams, I still think is going to be the Big 12 where they beat up on each other quite a bit. Like I don't know how Arizona State's not the favorite in that mix.
I got some thoughts. I go back and forth on this, and I ultimately settled with Duhast 1S.
Okay.
I think they'll be back. I don't think they'll win the Big 12. I think the Big
Okay.
12 gets two teams next year. I think Iowa State's the team to beat next year because of Rocco back in the.
Yeah, entirely possible.
We are due for the Big 12 to send us two teams in.
Mhm.
It did not happen this past year. Would have not have happened in 23. It would have just been Texas. But 22 would have gotten us Kansas State and TCU. 21 would have gotten us Baylor and Oklahoma State. And 20 would have gotten us Oklahoma and Iowa State. So that league has shown that they can get two top 10 teams in there, kind of like what we saw with, to some degree, with the ACC, with SMU kind of forcing its way in there
Mhm.
as well. So again, they're kind of picking from the same sort of thing. The Notre Dame of it all kind of is the loose appendage to the
Yeah.
ACC. So you're right though, like Arizona State's kind of been there, done that, and a lot of these other teams in the Big 12 have not experienced this. The water will find its level. We don't know who's going to take advantage of the power void at the top of the league, but Arizona State's probably, if they just get the commitment and investment from the university and and president and whatnot, they can do it.
Yeah.
You have a lot of people play high school football there in Arizona.
Mhm.
Academic standards aren't punishing at all. Like you can get people in, they can stay. You have an awesome venue. You got a bunch of prime time games as well. You've got a local product, a guy who went there, who loves his place, who
Mhm.
knows how special it is. That's a huge boost for internal recruitment. The fact he's 35 and not 73 is a big deal there as well.
Yeah.
I would also say that like Levitt might be a Heisman contender next year. I mean,
Mhm.
we're going to be pretty high on him. He might be my pick to come out of the Big 12 next season.
Yeah.
Tyson coming back. Yes, you're going to be losing Scadaboo and Guillory, but like you have a bunch of other guys there who are immensely talented. It's I I think that like they're not going to sneak up on anybody,
Yeah.
but like they've got a lot of positive momentum right now, and I think that what they're building there is special. Kenny D's awoken the previous sleeping giants. The big question is like who's moving out of the top four in that league. I think Colorado pulls back,
Yeah.
and I think Kansas
Not
State.
considerably, but I do think they pull
No,
back.
I think them and Kansas State swap spots. I think BYU is going to be towards the top there because they still got Jake Retzlaff, I think
Mhm.
maybe,
Yeah. Yeah, they do. Yeah, I think he's only a sophomore.
and I think you'd be foolish to say that Arizona State or Iowa State aren't in the top quarter of the Big 12 next year.
No, agree with you. And then to your to the point you started with the Big 12 getting two teams in, I don't think we should overlook the fact that, the Big 12 obviously only got one team in, but Arizona State acquitted itself very well. Taking Texas to double overtime, whereas you look at the ACC, which did get two teams in. Clemson got boat raced by Texas, and SMU got boat raced by Penn State. So, like,
Yeah.
you look at those two things and like what conference acquitted themselves, whether or not they say they do or not, that's going to matter in the committee room next year. That's going to be in the back of their minds. They're going to have that. You have to remember these are human beings who have the same biases that everyone has, even if they are different biases. But everyone has inherent biases that they talk about when they're talking about this sport. That's going to be in the back of their mind. And so if it's between an ACC team or a Big 12 team getting which conference gets two teams in, I guarantee you they're going to favor that Big 12 team.
Yeah, also the fact that like Iowa State and BYU are like a stone's throw away from essentially
Hmm.
being in there. They're closer to the three loss cluster there in the SEC between Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina than more than we even realized.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a chance that that could happen. So yeah, I'm glad we could have something positive. I was kind of getting nervous here about this because I was like, I don't know. The Arizona State's kind of like the Chicago Bears were like, I don't know if they're gonna have back-to-back good seasons. I don't think they
Yeah.
have it in them, but I think they do now because they have a good head coach and not not run by a McCaskey who doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. What an idiot.
That's facts. The previous Arizona State regime having a bad week.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think Antonio Pierce qualifies for food stamps right now. And
No, no.
also he can't go work in college because he's got that show cause.
Yeah, it's not great for him right now.
No, does the Raiders' job attractive though? That might actually be the best one, and because I think Telesco is pretty well thought of.
I think Telesco's a good GM. I mean, the quarterback situation's horrendous, but you do have a max. It's a weird situation because of the previous regimes that were there and how this roster was constructed. Because you don't have a quarterback answer, you have a pretty, I would say, slightly above average offensive line. You have Max Crosby, you have Brock Bowers. Then it's kind of a blank slate beyond that. So like, it's an interesting job if nothing else.
I think if I'm Ben Johnson, I'd consider leaving for them, and I go get Shador.
I mean, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it. I like my galaxy brain thing that I've cooked up is that I know it's going to be Vrabel in New England, but Ben Johnson with Drake May would be a lot of fun.
Yes, Ben Johnson would be. Yeah, I keep seeing him tied to like Chicago and Jacksonville probably more than anybody else too. It
Yeah.
seems like the Jets are just going to be like completely live. I think Aaron
The
Glenn's going
Jets
to
are
do
going to
some.
get scraps, man. They know coaches are smart enough to know that that's not a job that you really want to take.
And besides, like Aaron Glenn, like it's either going to be Aaron Glenn or Joe Brady in New Orleans. It's pretty
Hmm.
well thought of. And then Vrabel in New England, and we'll see what happens in Chicago.
We'll see what happens in Dallas too, because
Yeah,
this doesn't. Jerry Jones blocking Mike McCarthy. We're already back here, but Jerry Jones blocking Mike McCarthy from interviewing with Chicago does not mean that he's coming back to Dallas. That just means Jerry Jones is being Jerry Jones.
it's also important that Lou Anarumo being fired in Cincinnati that indicates that Zach Taylor is safe because why would they do that otherwise?
Yeah, 100%. That's very much college football mold where, you fire the coordinators before you fire the head coach.
Yeah, and then pick your successor if it's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
You're just a bunch.
100%.
It's like I want to be an old man wearing a suit and yelling at people. The Bo Ryan, that's Bo Ryan's all he wants to do. Is like I don't want to study. I don't want to be a lawyer. I just want to yell at people.
He should be a substitute teacher now. That's the kind of his next mold.
Quit horsing around.
That's right.
All right, we're gonna move on to our next topic with some 4 for 4. We did the antithesis of this on Monday. This is gonna be good. I thought this was too good of a prompt to sit on. We could have waited a little bit longer, but this is fun. So, what is the most likely team in each Power Four league to make the playoff next year that didn't this year? For the sake of argument, Notre Dame is essentially in the ACC. And if we want to kick it out to 5 and throw, if it's not Boise State for the group of 5, let's just do it on this fly too. So why not? Who cares?
Yeah,
It's easy.
I'm good with it.
So in the ACC, if it's not Clemson, if it's not SMU, and it's not Notre Dame, who is making the playoff next year?
I'm going to go Georgia Tech. I think that the continuity that they're bringing back, the return of Haynes King, the return of Haynes in the backfield, like I just think that Georgia Tech, we've talked about it. I don't think their ceiling is as high as a lot of teams in the ACC, but I think that their floor is exponentially higher. And with some of the variants, I think we're going to see in the ACC, like SMU, I expect to be very good. Clemson, I expect to be very good. We don't know beyond that. Like I don't know what Miami in a post Cam Ward era is. I don't know what who God only knows what Florida State's going to do. God only knows what the first year of Bill Belichick in North Carolina is going to look like. Duke's probably going to be pretty good, but I would still take Georgia Tech over Duke if I'm talking about long-term prospects because I just think that they have better players.
I consider Georgia Tech. I nearly put them in there. There's a lot here. So I went with Louisville. Louisville's my pick.
I like Louisville. That's good too.
Yeah, Jeff Brom knows what he's doing. That team have had a really tough schedule. It seems that people really respected them. I think they ended up going like 8-4 or something like that.
Yeah.
They're trending up as well. They could score a lot of points. They can't play a lick of defense. I think that's something they need to figure out.
Yeah.
But I went with them. I consider Georgia Tech. I thought Pitt is also interesting.
Mhm.
I thought about Duke and Syracuse if Kyle McCord comes back, but yeah, I ultimately went with Louisville here.
Yeah, Kyle McCord applying for a waiver for eligibility that I'm not sure why he thinks he deserves, but that's okay.
Get all that you can, man. You were in Ohio. You can do whatever you want now.
I mean, Ohio is basically a JUCO as a state, as an entity.
Oh God, my joke is if any state had to be deprived of internet to cure cancer in the United States, it would have to be Ohio because they don't need it.
Yeah, 100%.
They'll fi they'll figure it out.
Do you know who Gary Parrish is over at CBS
Yeah,
Sports?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he has a joke that whenever he says something critical about Indiana fan or about Indiana basketball, Indiana fans like show up in his mentions in droves, like they just flock in waves like a riot squad. And whenever Indiana loses, he says that the internet goes out in Bloomington. He's like, I don't know, the internet must have gone down because I stopped hearing from all these Indiana fans that have been in my mentions getting after me.
For the record, that was the runner-up to Ohio. If those two states, if Ohio, Indiana, yeah, whatever that is, just I think they touch. Yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah, I don't know how we combine the two, but it's definitely that area of the country.
Add Kentucky, it's the tri-state area.
There we go.
The Bermuda Triangle of internet. I love this.
That's right.
All right, let's move on to the Big Ten. So it cannot be Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, or Indiana. If you had to pick another school to make the playoff next year, who is it?
I'm gonna go. This is tough because
Yeah, this is the hardest one for me too.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not like in love with any answer that I could give here. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Michigan just because I think the upside of if Bryce Underwood works is tremendous. And so like if it works, like I think they would have to be the most likely candidate. Like this is a guy who has been compared to the next Cam Newton. Cam Newton put Auburn on his back. And granted, that was after some experience, but like he put Auburn on his back and won them a national championship. So like you're telling me that Bryce Underwood can't come in on a program that, let's be clear, Michigan was bad this year. They're not devoid of talent. That's not the reason they were bad. And you bring in a Justice Haynes, like you're bringing in the guys that you have here. I just think that Michigan has the most upside left in them to like challenge these other four.
Michigan was my runner-up. Again, there's kind of slim pickings here. I went on a limb. Give me Nebraska.
Okay, hell yeah,
Yeah.
hell yeah.
Another year with Dylan Raiola coming back. He's learning things. He's not running away from his problems. He's not going to quit while he's behind.
That's right.
He's no
No
Anthony
child left
Richardson.
behind, baby.
But this is also year three for Matt Rule on his job, and we know what happens with, whether everywhere but the Carolina Panthers. So
He didn't get to year three, basically.
at Temple, you get to the American Championship. If you're Baylor, you win the Big 12, you go to the Sugar Bowl. That sounds like a 10-2 team there at Lincoln, and you're driving to Lincoln. All right, all right, all right, all right.
Hey, Bubba, let's go.
Hey, Bubba. What do you got in your Runza? 5-star review.
5-star review, baby.
Yeah, that's I was like I almost admit Minnesota, but I forgot that Max. First off, I did not realize Max Brosmer is from the Atlanta area. I did not know that.
I did not know that either because he was at New Hampshire previously, wasn't he? So like he's
Yeah,
a well-traveled young man.
I believe he went to Centennial, the same alma mater that Mike McDonald of the Seahawks went
Nice.
to. Yeah,
Nice.
so nice. And then I almost did Illinois, but like Luke Altmaier's gone.
Hmm.
I think Brett Bielema is a hell of a coach. I think he's got that program humming, but like maybe this was the peak, and then we go down a little bit, and there's another peak.
Yeah.
A valley among mountains.
We got to go to the Big 12.
The Big 12. So if it cannot be Arizona State, who is it?
If it's not going to be Arizona State, I'm going to put Iowa State to the side because I feel like they're kind of in that Arizona State
Yeah.
category. So I'm going to go with Kansas State. I think that we expected Avery Johnson to hit the ground running. And I think at times we saw what this was supposed to be. I just think it was inconsistent. I expect we see more consistency from that in year two of him as the starter. I mean, I still think that Chris Kleiman's a phenomenal head coach. I think he's going to right the ship. Like we've seen too much from Chris Kleiman in this Kansas State program to count them out in the Big 12 race. So like, I think that's kind of where I fall on that.
Those are the same two schools I had. I had Iowa State more than Kansas State. Don't really need to add too much to that, but it's also the point where like beyond those two, do you really have faith to put it in anybody else? Like for me, It's honestly Baylor.
Yeah,
Baylor's the one I
that's
consider.
actually who I was going to say, which I don't feel I'm not going to say because I still have my doubts.
So follow me on this. I think we're probably on the same sort of methodology here. We kind of feel that BYU is kind of like Illinois, where it's like they hit that crest. They're
Hmm.
going to sustain some level, but like it's going to pull back maybe just a tad.
Yeah,
Colorado's going to rebuild a little bit. They're probably going
yeah,
to be more about a 7-5, 8-4 team. And that's okay. And then you're wondering if the teams like Baylor or Houston really skyrocket. At that point, I don't know.
yeah. Like those are probably your two best candidates to skyrocket. I do think that there's a chance that we see at least a little more separation at the top than we did this past year with the three to like I would say three and a half teams. Like I'll say like Arizona State, Iowa State, Kansas State, and then maybe one of Colorado and BYU. But I don't think we see like the 6 team race that we saw at the top of the Big 12 this past year.
It should be Texas Tech, but they lost Zach Kitley to the FAU job. We'll talk about that
Mhm.
probably a little bit later too. So that's significant. And then moving on to the SEC. If it can't be Georgia, Texas, or Tennessee, who's making the playoff?
We're gonna go Florida, man. I think we're Florida men around here. So like we praise Billy Napier because he did a phenomenal job last year. And unlike Dave Aranda, I don't think it was like my concern with putting Baylor in that conversation with the Big 12 is I just wonder if it is this year's Neil Brown, where you have like the pop year, but then it falls back again. I don't think we're in danger of that with Billy Napier. I think the best is yet to come for Florida. You've got DJ Lagway, you've got a highly ranked recruiting class, you've got a highly ranked transfer class. Like you're putting all the pieces in place with a young team that you said you were going to and you took this job. And so like I can just see them making that leap.
I considered Florida. I feel like you got to be Georgia to get in at this point. I'm
Mhm.
not sure it's quite there. Maybe they will be. We don't know. I'm going South Carolina
Yeah, that was my
because
other answer too.
I'm of the belief that Tennessee pulls back a little bit, and I think Alabama doesn't get going. I think Alabama's in a weird spot. So you get wins there. That puts you in a really advantageous spot. Lenore Sellers, yes, you lose like Kyle Kennard to the NFL draft. Please pick him Falcons. He's from here.
Yeah.
Don't let him go to the Panthers and pay for it forever because that's gonna be awful. Yeah, that's I think South Carolina's really good. I'm also just like I can't quit LSU. I
Yeah.
don't trust them at all, but like that's again Garrett Nussmeier. If we think he's going to be as good as he's going to be the savior of the New Orleans Saints franchise, he needs to play like it and finally put it all together. Maybe another year of Blake Baker there in Baton Rouge turns the defense around. Joe Sloan, I think, didn't get the ECU job, so that's a huge help for them. Maybe some coaching continuity helps, but again, I'm still a little dubious on LSU, but I like Florida as well. I think the last thing I would say is I guess we don't trust Alabama at all.
Mm-mm. No, I mean, I would probably be very high on Alabama if Jalen Milroe was coming back.
Yeah.
I understand that Austin Mack is Kalen DeBoer's like handpicked guy. He brought him with him from Washington. Brother, this is the SEC, man. And like I'm not sure that that's I think what we saw from this past year in the SEC, I'm not sure that's the league you want to just throw someone to the wolves immediately. And like I just there are enough red flags with Alabama right now that it's hard for me to get there to where I trust them.
Is that a landing spot for Jaden Rashada? Potential.
Potentially, I just like if it was me running the program, yes. It's not me running the program though, and I think Kalen DeBoer. I think we need to adjust what Alabama is going to do under Kalen DeBoer because Kalen DeBoer does not come from the Alabama line of thinking. He does not come from the if there's a talented guy that we can get, we can go get him. He does not come from that line of thinking. That's not something he had at Washington. That's not something he had when he was, on the staff at Indiana. Like that's just not something he's used to. And so, like, I think it's Austin Mack. I think that's their guy, and I don't think he wants to upset the apple cart. I'm sure they bring in depth, but I'm not sure Jaden Rashada, a former 5-star, is going to be considered depth. I think he's going to go somewhere and be a starter.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the one thing that's going to ruin DeBoer and Alabama. I don't think it's like that he won't relate to the people. Like they don't care. It's
No.
like he's South Dakota. He's a countryman. He can figure it out. The issue is the OKG component, which just plagues Washington forever. Our kind of guys.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if you do that, and you think that you're going to win with scheme and everything like that, Kirby, Sark, and Lane are going to eat your lunch every time because they
Mhm.
don't care. They're just like, we'll just get better players and run this more simpler scheme, more, almost as efficiently. We're gonna make more money running McDonald's as a real estate company than you will running a Houston's. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, at Alabama, our kind of guys are the ones with 5 stars next to their name. Like
Yes,
that should be your OKGs at Alabama.
we got more stars and A's in Alabama.
That's right, baby. Haven't seen Alabama post their team GPA like a lot of programs are doing. I wonder why.
It's getting hard, man. Georgia doesn't either. You know, it's hard to school. It's fine. They're just it doesn't matter.
Welcome to
Not
the
that-
SEC, baby.
And I guess let's throw the group of five one on there. If we don't think Boise State's going back. We think that like
No.
although Maddox Madsen's playing pretty
Mhm.
well, we think Spencer Danson's going. Dirk Cutter's stepping down. Forget exactly who's replacing him. It's someone of significance there, but like the Mountain West is also going to be pretty bad. I think outside of Colorado State, that's going to be kind of rough.
Yeah, so you actually mentioned the team that I was going to say was Colorado State. I think Colorado State has a real chance to make a lot of noise. Like you look in the AAC, there's a little bit of turnover. Like Tulane, like we're going to talk about Ty Thompson coming back, but he's coming back as a tight end. So like, what's the quarterback situation after losing Mensa? We trust John Summerall, but like I still don't know. Like I don't know. It might just be group of five problems that hit Tulane this year. Memphis is going to have a lot of turnover on the roster, losing a lot of their starting offense, which is obviously their bread and butter. Maybe you could look at Army, but like we know, I'm pretty sure that so
Get,
Bryson Daly is gone. So like we know Udo is gone. So like I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty for me in the AAC, and with the weakness of the Mountain West, with Boise State taking a step back, UNLV taking a step back as well, losing Barry Odom and all that they're going to lose. I look at Colorado State and the continuity that they have, and I think they're in a really good spot to potentially make something happen.
yeah, I think that they'll be in the mixed dude as well. I think they're going to be like a list of like 10 teams with like the Boise States, the Tulane Green Wave, etc. My pick, you're going to love this. It's not about the U. It's about the Miami Redhawks. They picked up DeQuan
Oh,
Finn.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
Chuck
like
Martin,
that.
man. Yeah, and I figured that like with Tim Albin leaving for Charlotte, and then obviously Bowling Green feels like they're going to pull back a little bit.
Mhm.
Unless Toledo is really good, I kind of feel that Miami has the
You're
potential to
fine.
run.
You don't got to worry
Yeah,
about Toledo.
Miami, Ohio could have a season like PJ Fleck had at Western Michigan.
I like that. That's a really good call. I like that a lot. They were a team that was expected to pull back a little bit last year, and they didn't. And so that's a good sign. You bringing in DeQuan Finn, obviously had a lot of success in the MAC previously, so I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's good. You know, when DeQuan Finn shows up at your school, he says four words: "Talk portal to me."
That's right. Said it in Waco, now saying it back in Miami, Ohio.
Is that wait? I don't think that's no. It's named after a native tribe, I think, right? I think
I don't know, dude.
it's Ohio.
This
Yeah,
is geography, and now we're talking Ohio geography. No shot.
I think it's Oxford, Ohio, if I stand corrected. But either way, it doesn't matter. He's going there, and they're going places. And Chuck Martin's there, and that's all I care about.
That's right.
You are replacing a Gabbert.
It is Oxford, Ohio, by the way. You are correct.
Instead of growing up Gotti, it's called growing up Gabbert.
Growing up, yeah.
Okay, so talk portal to me. So we've got a handful of transfers that are beneficial. Noah Thomas is leaving Texas A&M for Georgia. Tacario Davis is leaving Arizona for Washington. Uh, I'm looking at the wrong sheet. I'm looking at mine as opposed to what I put to you. So yours is more updated. Noah Thomas to Georgia, Tacario Davis to Washington, Tacario Washington. There we go. We got Russell Faison to South Carolina, Mackay Hughes to Oregon, Mark Gronowski to Iowa, former South Dakota State Jackrabbits quarterback, and Ty Thompson's going to stay at Tulane. The big names still in the portal are Damon Wilson off the Georgia defensive line and two offensive tackles, and Emmanuel Prignon out of USC and Elijah Pritchett out of Alabama. So where do you want to start?
I'm going to start with Mark Gronowski going from South Dakota State to Iowa. I'm intrigued.
Yeah,
I don't know what the deal is because Brendan Sullivan, I think, played pretty well for Iowa down the stretch. So like it's a little bit of a quarterback controversy, but Gronowski was a dude at South Dakota State, man. Dude has over 100 career touchdowns. I think over 10,000 career yards between passing and rushing. Like, dude is a dude who I like. that's not, you don't see Iowa making that type of move. Like you see them getting Cade McNamara to go to Iowa, not someone who has been as productive, even if it was at the FCS level. So like I'm intrigued, and I think more so than just like what Gronowski's going to be for the Hawkeyes, I think I'm more intrigued philosophically because if you're going and getting a guy like that in the portal, like that's not typical Iowa what we've seen. And so maybe there is like a little bit of a turning over of a new leaf, which I didn't know Kirk Ferentz was capable of at this point.
The fact that that's all about Tim Lester bringing him in, dude.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's just like honestly, just give Tim Lester the job, let him be the Hawkeyes coach. I'm kind of done with Kirk at this point.
It might be a weekend at Bernie's situation at this point. Like he might already be the head coach and he's just like putting Kirk out there and, moving the strings.
This is the last 2.5 years of Woodrow Wilson's presidency.
That's right.
Also, yeah, Atlanta's been crazy with the passing of President Carter. Obviously, I think the stock market's going to be closed tomorrow. I don't know if the banks are going to be open National Day of Mourning.
Yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't really go over to the Carter Center or to the place where the Arizona State podcast and I met because that's like a Democratic hangout right by there. So, yeah, we couldn't go there. It was stuff was popping off at the FARC tonight.
I get it, man. It's RIP to Jimmy Carter, lived a good life. The craziest Jimmy Carter stat that I saw, because we are in the sports world and everyone's got to relate everything to sports. He was alive for more Babe Ruth home runs than any active player's home runs, which is a wild thing to consider.
Yeah, 24. So yeah. At that point, yeah, what a time to be alive.
Yeah, man. He saw 430 Babe Ruth home runs in his lifetime.
I think it's like last year's president. He welcomed like the 79 Steelers there to like
Yeah.
the White House.
Unreal stuff.
Also, you ever remember like watching like the videos of like Lynn Swan? That guy, like people like that guy got targeted all the time. They beat him up because he was a ballerina named Lynn from USC.
Oh
Except
yeah.
they're playing in Pittsburgh and everybody who's in the Oilers or Bengals just trying to rough him up and everything like that.
Oh yeah, dude. My God, he got destroyed.
But speaking of, it also didn't help the fact that they put like sedans on the outside of the end zone of Three River Stadium to promote car dealerships.
Right.
He's
Oh
jumping
my.
over sedans.
The NFL has changed quite a bit.
First time we met Antonio, he parked his car in the side of a stadium. Like, you can't do that.
100%. He got it in Jerry World and somehow parked it on the sidelines.
He crashed it into the hedges at Sanford Stadium, and Fran Tarkenton's like, "What are you doing, man?"
Bulldog.
Bulldog. He's like, "You know what? Fair." So yeah, I love Gronowski to Iowa. I think that changes the entire game. Obviously, I think that Thomas to Georgia, and then Hughes to Oregon, we saw that coming. The Faison stuff happened really quickly. We were like thinking, like, I think he'll get P4 offers, and he got several, and he got a great one. I think he's going to replace Rocket Sanders there and Columbia. I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah, no, that's a big pickup for Beamer and the Gamecocks. Like you said, losing Rocket Sanders, who Norris Sellers deservedly got a lot of credit for what South Carolina did, but Rocket Sanders played a big part in that as well. When Rocket Sanders was banged up, South Carolina's offense was a little bit lesser than. But I mean, it's another feather in the cap of what you were saying. Like South Carolina is one of the most likely teams to potentially go from not making the playoffs to making the playoff next year.
Totally. And then I'm looking at the other ones that have committed. Noah Thomas to Georgia. We've talked about this. This goes along with Georgia getting Zachariah and Zion Branch, Kirby Smart, James Coley. The offensive staff's like, we're not going to miss the playoff next year because of receivers. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to go all in a Gunnar Stockton. That's fine, unless not Becker Ewers or Manning hit the portal. Like, we're not going to dip into that. We may get depth at this point. And I think fantastic pickup, but at some point Georgia's got to recruit out of high school better at that position.
They definitely do. Absolutely. It needs to become, I mean, there's no reason it shouldn't be too, which I think is the surprising thing, especially with the way Georgia recruits, but also with the recruiting base. But I really like the Thomas edition because I can now picture like roles in this Georgia receiving group, what it's going to look like going forward. Like you put Noah Thomas kind of into that George Pickens, Dominic Lovett type of role where you're just kind of the alpha number one that does a variety of things, like just the number one receiver on this offense. You put Zachariah Branch into kind of an upgraded version of what Arian Smith's role should have been, like a a gadget player, but also a field stretcher and someone who can do that. You have
Mhm.
Humphreys in there, who is also a field stretcher, needs to put on some more weight, obviously, as we've talked about, but like is a field stretcher by trade, has a lot of speed to him. You have Delp in the middle of the field as the tight end, who did really come on, I think, strong at the end of the year. Like it's starting to, you can start to make a whole lot more sense of what Georgia is going to look like in terms of their offense with the Thomas edition.
I think Bill saw his eligibility, put him in the comfy role. I think that's where he's
Yeah,
supposed to be.
100%. Yeah.
So that's big. I think Tacario Davis to Washington's a big deal. We'll talk about this later. Ryan Walters, the former Purdue coach, back in his bag, he's replacing Steve Belichick as the DC on Jed Fish's staff. I love this. This gives UW some much needed. But anytime UW is good, they've got great secondary players. Whether it
Mhm.
be Desmond Trufant, whether that would be trying to think who else, Taylor Rapp. They've always had like a lot of really
Yeah.
good, interesting players up there.
Buda Baker.
Buda Baker,
Yeah,
yes.
like they've had it was a secondary pipeline. I mean, Jimmy Lake has many faults, but recruiting secondary players was not one of them. He was quite good at it, recruiting and developing them. But when you look at Tacario Davis, like obviously he has the familiarity with Jed Fish, so like I think that helps him. But you also think about the pairing with Ryan Walters. Like the last time we saw Ryan Walters as a DC, he was getting Devon Witherspoon drafted in the top five.
Yeah,
Probably a
maybe.
good thing for Tacario Davis.
Yeah, maybe we're sleeping on UW a little bit. Maybe this is a team that ends up wearing the satin kimono or the Paul Finch award. Like this is a team I feel like I would turn around. Like I could see us getting really high on Washington, like we're in Seattle. Just
Oh, we've got months and months for us to talk ourselves into teams, baby.
yes.
Best part of the offseason.
Mackay Hughes to Oregon seems like that's a good fit there. Oregon needs to get a little bit tougher. I think if you play for John Summerall and Willie Fritz, you're kind of about that. That'll help them. How about the Ducks? Ty Thompson staying at Tulane. Maybe John Summerall's like, we don't have a quarterback. I think you need to do this. Come
No,
on.
he's converting to tight end. That was the last report I saw was he's not even coming back as a quarterback. They convinced him to stay as a tight end.
Well, that's just what I know.
Dude, I mean, there's a chance he might have to play quarterback because I don't know who's playing quarterback for the Green Wave right now. But yeah, not the best thing for Ty Thompson.
For sure. And as far as the three guys that are still in the portal with Wilson, Prignon, and Pritchett, Pritchett's the one I'm kind of probably the most concerned about because like you're leaving a really good offensive mind in DeBoer and everything like that. I think you were recruited out of high school potentially. I'm trying to think where you would go. Maybe Florida. Florida might be a good spot.
Florida could be a good spot. I could also see Texas making a lot of sense because they're
Yeah,
most likely going to lose Banks and Williams to the NFL. So like that can make a lot of sense. You have Gooseby who's played a decent amount filling in for Williams and Banks through injuries this year. Looks like he can be something in the future, but you know, Texas needs to stabilize that offensive line in front of Arch, especially as you hand over the keys of the offense.
for sure. I think that's a good fit. I think as far as Prignon, I think I'm looking more like LSU or Georgia.
Yeah, I think heavy hitters only, definitely. LSU, I think, would make a lot of sense, but obviously, like he would help Georgia, but I just think LSU seems to be a little bit more of a natural fit.
For sure. And as far as Damon Wilson goes, heavy hitters, you're looking probably like an Oregon or Ohio State.
Uh, can I submit my take?
You go ahead.
I think he's going to Ole Miss. That seems like an Ole Miss playbook to get some to like lure like one big fish. They did it with Princely. I'm not even going to pretend to try and pronounce his last name last year. Princely U from previously at Florida. Like they brought him in there. They brought in Walter Nolan. Like I think that Lane Kiffin, I think saw the benefits of really upgrading the defense last year. You're losing a lot of those guys. Bring in some guys like that with Damon Wilson.
For sure. I mean, and Ole Miss is a heavy hitter with this
Yeah,
too.
oh,
It's not,
100%. I wasn't saying
yeah.
they weren't a heavy hitter. I was just saying like I think like when I saw Damon Wilson enter the portal, my Ole Miss alarms went off.
So when I drink my sixth cup in the Red Solo Cup in the Grove and I hit the ground, my friends tell me this one phrase: "He gone."
He gone.
So we got three kind of minor coaching changes. Ryan Grubb is out as the offensive coordinator with the Seattle Seahawks. Get ready to learn Tuscaloosa, bud.
Oh yeah, you didn't want to make the move with Kalen DeBoer initially because you got the job with the Seahawks. Well, now you don't have that job, brother. So you're headed down to Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I got some thoughts about that. Wes Goodwin is out as the defensive coordinator for Clemson. I don't really understand that. I feel like he was not the problem. I think it was Garrett Riley.
Yes and no. I mean the Clemson defense I think has underperformed. at least since the departure of Brent Venables. Like I just don't think that the talent hasn't necessarily gone anywhere, but I think the performance and the consistency of that performance has gone somewhere. I also like the early buzz, and I haven't seen the latest update on this, but the early buzz was that they were going after Tim Banks at Tennessee, which if you have a chance to go get Tim Banks and bring him into
Right.
Clemson, like you kind of have to do that because I think that's a very clear upgrade if they can make that happen.
And then obviously Ryan Walters leaving Purdue after getting fired to go to Washington, which we really like. So if Grubb does not go to Alabama, where does he end up?
That's an interesting proposition. I wonder, man, I think it's a college job for sure. Like, I don't think we see him get another NFL job after 1 year in the NFL. I would wonder, do you bring someone, can Lincoln Riley swallow his ego? Bring him into USC?
That could be interesting. I thought Indiana potentially as a Tina
Mm-hmm.
Sinceri replacement too.
Yeah.
That's a good fit too. I feel kind of very Big Ten with him if it's not Alabama.
Yeah, I think I like Alabama is the obvious because of the DeBoer connection. Like, there's no, I would be shocked if it wasn't Alabama, if I'm being frank with you right now. Like, I don't even think we've heard any buzz, but it's just the most obvious thing in the world to me. And, but I would be shocked if it wasn't. I, I would also wonder, Belichick hasn't hired an OC yet, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I don't think so. I think it's just Stevens the DC.
Yeah, like I know he's hired like staff, like other assistants and stuff like that from the Belichick family and the Lombardi family. That's basically the only two things he's hired from. No, I take that back. Freddie Kitchens is the offensive coordinator. I lied to you. But maybe you bring Ryan Grubb on the offensive staff because I don't want Freddie Kitchens as my offensive coordinator. So bring Ryan Grubb in there because I do think that Belichick values NFL experience. Like I think that's something he's going to value. So bring someone who just came off of an NFL job, that could be something he could try to do.
I could see that. So, Alabama, North Carolina, Big Ten. Congratulations. We got that figured
North
out.
Carolina is basically the Big Ten.
I'm gonna make sure they're not hired yet because that kind of Ryan Walters. Okay, is definitely that's a political guy. Uh, Wes Goodwin, do you have a job? Um, I think Wes Goodwin might be a candidate for. I think Georgia picked up Brandon Streeter. Maybe they go get him. Maybe Oklahoma brings him in or something like that.
I could see that. I could definitely see Venables trying to get him in there. And I think that would actually be a really smart move by Venables because I think Venables needs to take a back seat. Like I know he's a tremendous defensive mind, but if he wants this to succeed at Oklahoma, he needs to not be as hands-on as he has been. Like I think he needs to take a back seat and trust his coordinators. And so him and Goodwin did cross over at Clemson, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like Goodwin was promoted from within.
Hmm.
And so, like, someone who has a familiarity with Venables, what Venables wants to do, and letting Venables be more of a guiding light as opposed to the hands-on guy at Oklahoma, I think that could be really beneficial.
Show the perfect place for Goodwin. Put him in Louisville.
Ooh, don't hate that at all.
Yeah, Louisville's competed the same division with Clemson for years. This is an opportunity to get past them. I can see that happening.
I like that a lot. Yeah, and that feels like something Jeff Brown would definitely try to do.
The Brom, disgusting. The Brom.com.
Oh my God. If we were in 1993, that shirt would be made yesterday.
The Brom.com. Speaking of which, Adam Leiter, the baseball chat at work, just talking about Wingstop. Then I also had the can't eat pizza in the summertime because of the hot cheese. I'm just like, we have some takes at
I,
work.
Look, I think Wingstop's overrated as hell. Like, I'm not a big
It's
Wingstop
fine.
guy, but like, not ever having it, that's wild. But also, pizza isn't anytime food. Let's be clear. I'm eating pizza 365. There is there's no time frame for pizza. There's a time frame for soups. I'm not eating soup in the summer, but pizza is not a soup.
I mean, I'll eat soup in the summer too. I don't like it, but I do it. And you can eat ice cream whenever you want to. I don't really care. The
Oh,
only
I love a cold day and a cold bowl of ice cream. Just embrace
Yes,
it, man.
yes. The only food that like I can't do when it's super ridiculously hot is like just people eat just brisket in general. That stuff tries to kill me.
I would say like there was one day when I was like still living in North Carolina when I went over to my mom's house and it was just one of those like hot southeast days where like it's probably only like high 80s, low 90s, but like the humidity is just like making you drip sweat.
Hot.
Yeah, dude, like hot with a capital H2O, man. It's like I went over to my mom's house and I was like, "What are we having for dinner?" And she was like, "Potato soup." And man, let me tell you, on a day like that, potato soup does not hit. I felt awful after that entire experience.
As a man who occasionally sweats when he eats, as in, it's a 50-50 proposition to coin flip. It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, but like, yeah, Wingstop in Atlanta, that's a choice. There's tens of other options to go to, but like
There are
you
dozens of us, dozens,
you can do it. You're having a what I would call a sad boy meal at that moment.
hundred
Doesn't
percent.
doesn't matter if you have company, doesn't matter what gender you are, you're having a sad boy meal at that moment.
Yes, you got to have the Sabo move. I got to ask you a question about summer eating proclivities. Is the Arizona State podcast a big let's eat outside person? Because the NC State podcast is.
We do that sometimes. It's kind of seasonal, but obviously with the hair, I just sweat the whole time.
Yeah,
So
that's not a consideration for the NC State podcast. I'm
no.
also sitting there sweating the whole time, and she's like, "Isn't this lovely? Can't you feel the breeze?" And I'm like, "No, I can't feel the breeze. I'm dying. Like I'm literally dying."
I would say there's like a few restaurants that we go to regularly that have outdoor seating that we'll go to, but like as far as like sitting basically on a sidewalk out by a street, we're not about that. But
Yeah,
if it's got a covering, we'll do it.
yeah. It's we don't even need a covering. We're not big on like this, or I say we. I'm not big. I would eat inside every meal. I do not like eating outside. It's not my thing, unless we're grilling out, which is a different proposition in and of itself. But like if we're eating outside, it does tend to need to have like what the NC State podcast would describe as a nice patio, whether that's hanging lights, whether that's some nice shrubberies or hanging plants. It needs to be a nice patio to entice her.
The Arizona State podcast is big. I think she's a big fan of sitting at the bar and eating.
Okay, I can respect that too. No wait, baby.
No, wait. Yeah, we met at a bar and
Yeah,
we eat at bars, and that's kind of a big thing. The best place to eat by the bar, Carrabba's, because they get to see them make the food. My dad loves that stuff. That's so
nice. Hell
cool.
yes.
There is one bar by us that we don't go to. We're gonna call him Matt because I'm just gonna be really disrespectful about that. He's the kind of guy that's so evil that all of his hair ran away from him, and he probably eats hamburger helper off of a frisbee. He's that type of guy.
Just unloaded the clip on this man.
I swear to God, we were watching the World Series, and it was the Diamondbacks Rangers, and we're
Mhm.
trying to watch this, and the guy would not give us a service. He's like, "Oh, just yell at me to make a drink," and it's like, no, what are we on? Like, are we on like a Viking ship? Are you kidding me? It's like, no, my voice doesn't carry anyway. Like,
My
just
voice carries, and I still wouldn't want to do that. That's not no.
Oh, and he's like he basically makes all the drinks for everybody in any sort of situation. So like he's making it for the bartenders, he's making it for like the people sitting at the bar and the people who are like at the tables. So it takes forever because he's too busy taking shots, trying to hit on the girl who's way out of his league because he's just an out of control bald like Caillou.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of balding, I saw a I saw an AI video the other day, and like most of the AI videos, I can take them or leave them. I don't really care. But someone captioned it if Brock Bowers played without a helmet, and they put Mo from The Simpsons in there with his big bald spot playing tight end for the Raiders, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
I know we all look like LeBron James, the ultimate front runner.
That's right.
And I don't know if we're gonna do some front running here, but we're gonna move on to our final topic here. We're gonna do some C's get degrees. I don't know where the comma goes, but it's in there.
We have one.
Commas are like commas are like apostrophes, commas. They go whatever you want. It's like
It's
a tattoo.
vibes, all
It's
vibes.
vibes. Just put it where you want to. If you want to put hot sauce in your food, it's fine. If you want to put salt in your food, it's fine. If you want to eat outside, it's fine unless it's cold.
That's right.
But yes, we're gonna do some C's to get degrees. We're gonna do some of our favorite head coaching hires and least favorite head coaching hires from the most previous cycle. So I earmarked five for each that I like and five that I don't. So just I have the running list here. What are some of your favorites? Just rattle off a few that you really liked. It's a really, really bad cycle, by the way.
Oh yeah, not great. Like the hires I liked were a lot harder to get than the hires I didn't like. But I'm gonna go with Rich Rod as my number one. Like I think that I'm really high on we've seen him do it there before. We've seen him have success since then in this modern era of college football. I think it's the reset that West Virginia needs. I think the fit just makes a lot of sense. I've got to mention, the adjacent family, 6 degrees of separation. Scott Abel going to Rice. I just have to mention that Davidson has been a good program. I think it is a chance that Rice needs to take. So I don't actually hate it from an objective football mind. I really like Dowell Loggins at App State. I think that's a really good hire. I think it's a guy who knows the region, has spent time at South Carolina, and I think a guy who can, like, I mean, we know what App is capable of. They're capable of being Sun Belt champs perennially, and so like I think that getting someone like Dowell Loggins in there, I think is a really good hire for them. But that's, and I don't know if you really call this. I always struggle with how do you fit this into the equation, but ECU retaining Blake Harrell, like
Yeah.
that team played really hard for him down the stretch, and I think really started to unlock some stuff for the Pirates. So those are a few that really stood out to me.
Yes, I share similar sentiments about Dowell Loggins at App State and Blake Carroll at ECU. Those are both of my top five that I really liked. For similar reasons. Dowell Loggins got NFL experience, made South Carolina's offense like really good, way better than Marcus Satterfield.
Yeah. Yes. God. Again, Satterfields. Why? What are we
Satterfield's
doing?
Blake Harrell obviously did a fantastic job there at ECU. My favorite hire is Barry Odom at Purdue. I love that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean,
Uh,
like I struggle because of what the Purdue job is. And
yeah.
like that always is going to color some of these perceptions. I don't know how to grade a Tulsa hire with Trey Lamb because it's Tulsa. Like what the
Yeah.
hell am I doing here? And I like Purdue is the P4 version of that.
Yeah, so like my three favorite hires are all like I think a coach is really good going to a tough job with Barry Odom going to Purdue, Tim Albin going to Charlotte, and Jake Dicker going to Wake Forest.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my thing. I think that they're overqualified for those opportunities. At least one of them is going to be a big hit. I don't know which one, but one of them is going to be a big hit.
Yeah, and perhaps multiple. Like it's entirely possible that they're multiple. And I really do like the Tim Albin hire just because like the run that he's had at Ohio, like we've talked about the potential untapped potential of Charlotte. And like he's a guy that I think could take advantage.
There's potentially oil here.
Yeah, I mean, there's potentially oil wherever you look, man.
God, you're like it's like a Saudi real estate agent. There's potential oil here.
That's right.
Is there going to take me out here and leave me out to die? There's potentially oil here.
John Doe has the upper hand.
John Deere's got a tractor, and this is
That's
all stuff.
right.
Least favorite. So I'll go first. I hate Scott Frost at UCF. I hate that one so much. I think anytime you're going back, I will give. I'm kind of in the middle on Rich Rod. I think it's okay, but I think Scott Frost like just he didn't learn his lesson, and UCF's in a really competitively disadvantaged spot in the Big 12 because of geography. The fact that UCF is also there's no other fan base like UCF out there. It's like a completely different. It it's great, but it's also
Yeah.
consuming. Is probably the best way to describe it. It's Ohio State. It's what Ohio State was a couple of stages ago.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm more middling on Scott Frost. Like I'm not willing to kind of in the same vein as Rich Rod. Like I've seen him have success there before. So like I can't rule that out that he can do it again. I understand the disadvantages of being in the Big 12 geographically, but I also you're still in Florida. You can still recruit the state of Florida, which is a pretty good thing to have. And like Scott Frost is a guy that I think could potentially make it work, but I'm less high on it than I am a Rich Rod, and I don't have him like near the top of the list because I can't get the Nebraska taste out of my mouth. So like I just like that kind of balances out and has me in the middle with Frost. I'm gonna go with Phil Longo at Sam Houston. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. Like I think that I don't think Phil Longo is necessarily a bad offensive coordinator. I think he's a very specific offensive coordinator for if you have like if you're going into North Carolina where you have wide receiver talent, you have Sam Howell and Drake May, like yeah, get Phil Longo in the building. But like if you're going to Wisconsin, we saw how terribly that worked out. And you're coming off of that Wisconsin stint, you're going to hire him as a head coach at a program that frankly, I don't think you can recruit the style of offense that Phil Longo wants to play. Like it just I think this is a complete misfire by the Bearcats with a K.
I had Phil Longo on there as well. I also have three other G5s that I don't particularly like. Matt Drinkle at Central Michigan. I think going with an Army-based offense after what you have with Jim McElwain when you throw the ball around,
Yeah.
there's a potential that Central Michigan dips down to the bottom of the league with Akron and Kent State pretty quickly.
No, agreed, 100%.
Also had some thoughts about Trey Lamb to Tulsa. It's kind of one of the whole like we got our guys sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you're trying to go for a guy who's had a lot of success at East Tennessee State. I would have rather just seen Ryan Switzer just to give it a shot, just because it's just like I feel like you're the American and you're acting like you're the least relevant team in Conference USA. I just think I feel like this program needs something and it's got nothing.
I mean, I can't grade Tulsa too harshly just because I think the program is just impossible. Like as impossible as Kent State, like no doubt about it.
And the other one that I really do not like, I do not like Tony Gibson to Marshall. That
Mm,
one's because it's
yeah.
like you're getting a guy that has ties to the state because he had coached at West Virginia, but Dana Holgerson didn't retain him. You're like, oh, a defensive mind from North Carolina State. Well, North Carolina State didn't have a good defense last
No, it was
year.
quite bad. As someone who had a lot of backing in NC State can tell you, let me tell you, that defense is atrocious.
And then it's the whole fact that like you lose Charles Huff, he goes to Southern Miss, and then it's
Which
like,
like I still don't think we've appreciated how weird that is. Like that is very weird that that happened. You went from the champions of CUSA to Southern Miss in like the worst spot in CUSA. Like it's just I don't know. Not gonna get over that for some time. It's a weird move for Charles Huff.
in the ACC, that would be like going from Florida State to Virginia willingly.
Yeah, legitimately. Like that's exactly what it would be, and I don't understand it at all.
And if it was the SEC, that'd be like going from LSU to Mississippi State.
Yeah, like you don't see it. It's just
No,
it's super weird.
no, it's just I don't see this one. I don't really know what Marshall's doing. Maybe it could work out, but that thing caught me by surprise. Everything I kept looking at like doesn't make any sense. It's just like what kind of substances am I on? Because it's just not working right now.
Yeah, one other I wanted to throw in here, and I don't. This isn't necessarily the hire itself, but Jerry Mack at Kennesaw State. Like I think Jerry Mack could be a fine coach at Kennesaw State. I'm the process of Kennesaw State being in this coaching carousel, firing Brian Bohannon, I think is asinine. I still will not get over that. I think it was a bad call by the Owls program. You're firing a guy because he had a lack of success in the first year that you jumped from FCS to FBS. That's not wise. History tells us that you're going to have a bad first year, and second year you can really pop. This is a dude who had a lot of success at the FCS level in Bohannon, and like I again, this isn't to disparage Jerry Mack. This is disparaging Kennesaw State for making the move.
Overton, man.
Yeah, it's yeah, no good.
No, the other one I thought was kind of interesting in that kind of mold is like Willie Simmons taking over at FIU. You're looking at a guy to basically develop talent, but like maybe that can like cut the corners there. You're also competing with Zach Kitley, who's supposedly an offensive guru. One of those two is going to work out when one of them is not, and I don't know which one it is yet. It's
So let's end on a positive note with this coaching cycle. Who was like your honorable mention? Because I have two that I think were in kind of consideration for my honorable mention at the top.
honorable mention at the top. I would say, honestly, I'm gonna be I think there's two that I really kind of like towards the top. I thought Belichick towards the top, and I like what's how do I say this name again? Harris Simiak going to UMass. I think those two they're different. I think that like they're trying to do something different here, and the defensive mind of both Belichick and Harris Simiak, I think can like raise the floor for UMass considerably, and then gives North Carolina opportunities to get in living rooms they wouldn't otherwise get into. So I like those two.
Yeah, so I had Belichick as one of my quote unquote honorable mentions. The other one, Bronco Mendenhall at Utah
Yeah.
State. I really like that. I think that getting him back in the state of Utah State, we've seen have some pop years. It's been a tough few years, but like Bronco Mendenhall is a guy that stabilizes programs. That's kind of what he does. And so like I think getting him in a place where he's obviously comfortable like that, I think that's going to work out really well for Utah State.
And I would agree. Anything can be better than what it was last year under
Yeah.
Utah State. This was episode 141 of Fall Start. That's a palindrome, which is crazy. We're gonna have a really gross episode coming up here too. We're gonna do something with 144, like I don't know, egg puns.
Egg puns. Yeah, of course.
Who's got egg on their face? um, who's the omelet, the bee's knees, chicken or the egg? It's do house or do house.
Who's over easy?
That's why I'm over easy. Yeah, I got to brainstorm about that. But yeah, season's winding down here. We'll be coming to you guys semi live with 3 yards and a cloud of punt after the Cotton Bowl on Friday, assuming we both have internet. National championship will be good there too. I think that's in a week or so. I don't even know what day it is.
The
Uh,
20th. It's on
20th,
inauguration day. Yeah.
inauguration day. Yeah, what a day to be alive.
Hmm.
Um, it will be a distraction for you then and there for that. But eventually we'll get to the off season. I think that's where we really make our hay as a dynamic duo here. We'll bring on guests. We'll bring back up just like Novocaine. We haven't figured out if we want to do the replacements or ACDC first or somebody else entirely, but we'll figure it out.
100%. Yeah. We've got always got bands to choose from. It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. Got beautiful minds. And this is false start.